What is the worst thing you have done because you got confused between items in different hands? I have put the house phone in the fridge and left the milk out more times than is healthy. The fridge is now the default first place I look if the phone is not on its cradle. My friend, I'm genuinely worried. I dipped my chips in the water, had a little I'm such a dumber moment in my head, then proceeded to drink the salsa. When I was in college, our wind ensemble went to China right after I graduated. They took us to an American style restaurant one day and this guy filled up an entire soda cup with soy sauce because he thought it was soda. Threw a glass of water on my bed instead of a book. Why were you going to throw water on a book? Phone in one hand, open Pepsi bottle in the other. Threw the wrong one on my bed. 911. Yes, I drank my phone also, sorry for the call quality. When I was 10, I was watching TV and had the remote in one hand and a cup of hot tea in the other. My dad came in and asked for the remote. Instead of tossing him the remote, I threw my cup of tea and it went all over him. The next morning his chest and legs were red. Imagine asking for the remote and getting third-degree burns instead. This was my brother, but I was on the receiving end. We were at a country club for a wedding one evening and there were various backgammon games set up. This happened so long ago I don't even remember how to play backgammon anymore. But it was my brother's turn, and he was excited. So excited he slammed his glass of bourbon down on the game board and thrust the dice cup full of dice into his mouth. Totally worth being covered in watered down liquor to witness such buffoonery. This actually made me laugh out loud. I was writing while drinking Coke. I ended up stabbing myself in the face with a pencil. Okay, but did you draw with your Coke? Stuck a dog treat in my mouth and gave my dog my popsicle. She was thrilled. How'd the treat taste? Friend of mine once put the remote control in the oven and then wondered why he found himself in the living room holding a sausage. Remote control was destroyed and it had previously spent several days in the back of a freezer because of a similar incident. I think this is one of my favorite stories on Hill Mayo. My husband cleans the cat litter box and puts the gleanings in a tied-off plastic grocery bag. He also puts his lunch in a tied-off plastic grocery bag. When he goes to work he takes both bags outside, one to come with him and one for the trash can. Mistakes have happened. You should get him a lunchbox for his birthday. A couple minutes ago I unwrapped a stick of gum, stuck the wrapper in my mouth, and threw the gum in the trash. Did you end up eating the gum? It's becoming clear to me from this thread that humans holding a cup in one hand and literally anything in the other hand is a recipe for disaster. Autopilot is a hell of a drug. I had a cup of coffee and a little single-serve container of coffee cream. I opened the cream container, poured its contents into the trash, and then dropped the empty container into my coffee. Before coffee fugue is a real problem. The other day I tore open a packet of sweetener, almost poured it in the trash. Took milk out of fridge. Got coffee in the mug successfully. Went to put milk in fridge without pouring any. Realized. Opened it and almost poured milk into the bottom shelves of the fridge. Threw away $5. Tried to pay at cash register with candy wrappers. Edit. To all of you asking, my favorite candy wrapper has to be M&M. Cracking up. What did the person behind the counter say? I cracked an egg, poured out the egg into the trash, and put the shell into a bowl. Do you eat your eggs with or without the crust? Drank paint water and whilst washing my brush in my cup of tea. 2 simultaneous duck ups. This is the kind of fear I always have when painting. Imagine the disaster if you were using oil paint solvents instead of water. I went to go and put a scoop of cat food in the washing machine drawer once. I too like my clothes to smell a fancy feast. Was drinking a hot cup of coffee on the back porch while throwing a bowl for my dog. To be fair, it was like 4 AM and the pup wasn't hurt, but my favorite mug got rearranged and the tree got some dirty bean water. I did something similar. My dog drops his bowl in his dish before coming in. Usually I toss his bowl then fill his dish in the morning. After a long night with a sick child, I stepped out, looked in the bowl, and flung his breakfast scoop into the yard. Eating sandwich at beach / skipping stones / watching the sunset and thinking about life / throw sandwich into ocean / bite rock people saw. This is just incredibly funny to me because skipping stones is called kastamaka in Swedish and that literally translates to throwing sandwiches. I grabbed my banana instead of the conductor's baton on the music stand as I began conducting the orchestra and chorus during a rehearsal. The musicians followed the banana very well, as if it were intentional on my part. Some thought the curve aided in making the performance more expressive. I laughed out loud and kudos for being respected so much that you are taken seriously while conducting with a banana edit. Spelling, thanks. Put a wad of tissues in the laundry basket and threw my socks into the toilet. Deleted. I was studying my notes which were in a notebook while also following lecture slides on my iPad. I tried zooming in my notes. Happened many more times throughout the sem. I didn't know how to write a certain word and was waiting for the red underline to appear on my sheet of paper to show me correct spelling. Tried to put an M&M in my ear and my galaxy bud in my mouth. Crunch. Duck. I had a lens cleaner spray in one hand and a mouth freshener spray in the other. Guess what I did? Killed a family of 4 and got a new identity? Dipped my tortilla chip in water. Still better than a toast smoothie. I once picked up my toothbrush and then instead of picking up toothpaste I picked up a tube of cortisone. Luckily caught myself. I also once picked up a razor instead of a toothbrush and just stared at it. Another time I poured water on the floor instead of in the sink. Just imagine someone standing facing away from the sink, angling their glad of water downwards and just staring at the stream of water hitting the floor. Mom has done the same, but poured the glad of water into a dog cage my cat was chilling in. Cat didn't move, but stared at her like what the duck. Eater, thanks so much for my first gold. Makes me so happy to see people thoroughly enjoy me and my mother's weird fits. I also once picked up a razor instead of a toothbrush and just stared at it. These are the best moments, especially when you forget what you were planning to do in the first place. Suddenly you have a random object in your hand and you have no idea why. Mom has done the same, but poured the glad of water into a dog cage my cat was chilling in. Hahaha, that poor cat. When I'm snapping the ends off the green bean sometimes I throw the bean in the trash and the end in the bowl. Not too funny, but at least it's true. I do this all the time. Or if I have 2 piles, one of the snapped off ends and one of the actual beans sometimes I'll get confused and end up with a mixture of the two. Then I'll have to go sorting through the piles. This is the most boring story I've ever told Reddit. Licked the lid of my yogurt, then threw the full yogurt pot in the bin with the spoon inside. The amount of times I've thrown the spoon in the bin and the empty yogurt cup in the sink before realizing. Rolled the blueberry and ate the dice. How did the blueberry do? Did it grit? Only in one hand, but poured a drink onto myself that I was sipping through a straw. I do this way I too often. Deleted. I'd be chisting bricks if that happened to me. Threw my keys into the recycle bin and attempted to start my truck with a crushed monster can. Monster truck. Put my box of cereal in the fridge and my gallon of milk on top of it. Stayed that way unnoticed for almost 24 hours. At least you didn't put the milk in the cabinet. Disposing leftover bones into the trash and placing the plates into the sink. I grabbed the bones with my hand and tossed the plates into the trash bin and started washing the bones before realizing what I've done. Friend, you need more sleep. I had a cup of coffee and a scented candle. I drank the candle. Was it melted? What happened after? Funny enough, I threw my phone in the trash just this morning and realized only after dumping the trash into my clothes bin. Why do you throw your phone in the clothes bin? Computer keyboard under one hand, PS4 controller in other. Wondering why what I'm typing in computer won't show in PS4. I have one keyboard that syncs to my phone, tablet, and computer. The number of times I've sent random work related words as text messages to my wife is embarrassingly high. This isn't a mixed up hand story, but it's in the same vein. So one day, after delivering an order whilst on my former pizza delivery job, I was walking back to my car. As I walked, I took my car key between my fingers, and my brain told my hand, okay hand, the next thing you're going to do is insert that key into the ignition to start the car. And my hand was like, okay, word. I got this. Then as I sat down in the car, my brain said to me, Panhead09, you should probably take your phone out of your pocket and charge it before starting the car. The battery is getting low. And I said, that's a good idea brain. You should pass that along to my hand. And my brain said, I think I'll do just that. So my brain relayed this message, which had to pass through my arm. And as the message was about at my elbow, my arm said, charging the phone. Got it. I'll get this process going. And so my arm started moving to get my phone out of my pocket. But here's the thing. My arm started moving before the new message made it to my hand. So while my arm was all excited, going oh yay, that phone is gonna get so charged, my hand was still in its own little world, thinking, insert the key and turn on the engine. Insert the key and turn on the engine. Anyway, that's how I ended up stabbing myself in the leg with my car key. Delivering pizza, my erstwhile job, walk to the car, holding the fob, aiming to start, but first charge the phone. The idea was had, my arm moved alone. Into the keyhole, so said my brain, and into my leg. I now feel the pain. This is my story about mixed up hands, related with liberty, as poems demand. I used my bare hand to pick up my dog's poop. I know my neighbor saw me also. I just kind of played it off. How do you play that off, Mo? Not me, but a friend of mine. I was at a party a couple of years ago. Typical early adult stuff, so everyone is drunk by the end of the day. I myself can't drink, so I've got a front row seat to this glorious event. My friends were all in the same age group, so newly 21-year-olds drinking their fill. You can imagine what happens later. The bathrooms start filling up with a bunch of new drinkers blowing chunks. My cousin and her so happen to be at this party. She's about ready to throw up. Her boyfriend is already taking care of her brother, who had just thrown up. I should mention that the boyfriend is also drunk as duck. He has a bowl in one hand, half full of the brother's vomit, and nothing in the other hand. My cousin is heaving and all the bathrooms are locked. Trash cans and sink are free, but we were upstairs. No way are these three making it down there. So boyfriend looks at his hand in a drunken daze, then to the hand with the large bowl in it, then to his heaving so hot ready to throw up. I look at him, and I can practically see his brain trying to tell him what to do. No good. His motor skills are ducked, so in attempt to help my cousin, he hurriedly moves his empty hand to below her mouth, and catches all of her vomit in his empty palm. I watch in horror as it spills onto the white rug of our friend's house. The boyfriend, as vomit flows through his empty hand, stares at his other hand with the bowl in it, and mouths a silent duck as he realizes slowly that his body did not perform the way he wanted it to. It's a story we still tell to this day. Oh man, do I feel this. One time my little brother ate too much cotton candy at a hockey game. He then threw up all over me in the car 1 hour from my home. My parents made me sit there with blue vomit on me for an entire hour, and laughed the whole time. Sat down by the ocean to smoke a joint with my buddy. He is about to spark up, so I hand him a lighter. Turns out it was dead, so I hand him a second lighter. He then proceeds to throw the good lighter into the ocean like a tit. I just sat there being like, I don't know what I'm more mad about here, not being able to yell smoke or you being by throwing plastic in the ocean. He was just staring out there not saying a word, knowing he ducked up twice. Was a pretty classic moment in retrospect. That reminds me of my old housemate throwing a joint to someone across the room, and it fell into a full cup of tea. He just gave him a very stern look. I almost cleaned with my cell phone. That would have been unfortunate if you threw your phone in the toilet. Tea bag in the sink, teaspoon in the bin. It happens on an astonishingly regular basis. I had a container of curd in my left hand and a packet on my right hand. Someone asked me what time it was, and when I proceeded to see my watch, which I was wearing on the left hand, I ended up spilling the curd all over myself as the lid was not tightened enough. They may have known exactly what they were doing. Have a friend who once got another mutual friend to pour his drink on himself by telling him that there was something amusing written on the underside of his full mug. My friend at work was so exhausted one morning, he tried locking the employee fridge with his car keys. I know that's not exactly the questions, but I thought it was somewhat relevant lol. I try to unlock the front door with my car remote at least weekly. Tried to play Wii with my glass full of water, had the controller in the wrong hand. I had my tarantula on my hand and a couple Doritos in the other. I almost ate my tarantula. No eats per day. I bet you were both pretty glad you stopped yourself, haha. Finished chopping some vegetables when my dumb mind made me cut 4 of my fingers at the same time. Delicious. My teacher in the 6th grade asked me to throw him an eraser. I threw a pair of scissors at him. He had to duck, and they narrowly missed his eye. I mean, I guess I could call that payback for the time he pretended to cut my hair off and actually got some. I'm having secondhand anxiety from this one. How long after you released the scissors during the throw did you realize they were the scissors? I had 2 cups on the table, one with goldfish, the other with lemonade. I was eating and drinking. While watching YouTube I got deep into the content and ended up drinking from the goldfish cup, and before I had a chance to react I had 4 fingers in my lemonade. Took me far too long to work out you didn't mean a pet goldfish. That story would have had a very different ending. I was making a chocolate drink, Milo, one day and I pour almost half a bottle of soy sauce into the cup, confusing it with the Milo. I was just going for a walk with one of my daughters the other day. She stops and picks a dandelion off someone's property. Not one of the yellow dandelions, but the one you blow on, and it sends weed sperm all over the place. So there she is walking along with a lollipop in one hand and a dandelion in the other. Do the math. Weed sperm. I almost shaved my teeth. I drank my phone and tried to upvote milk. How do you try to drink a phone? I had a phonobook, 5 inches thick, for a class project in one hand, my hat in the other. School had just let out, and my friends distracted me. We talked. The phonobook and the hat switched hands a couple of times because it's a heavier brick of paper. Y'all kids today don't know. I got distracted. The wind gusted a bit colder. I jammed my hat on my head, but it wasn't my hat. And that's how I once concussed myself with the Southwestern Bell Yellow Pages. While reading this, my brain decided to reenact the imagery and had me slam my phone directly into my forehead. I was holding my apartment keys in one and a trash bag in the other, threw my keys into the dumpster, and kept the bag. Couldn't find my spare, and it took a week to get a new key. This is my fear every time I take out the trash. I was eating cereal and poured orange juice into the bowl, then filled up a cup with milk. I didn't realize it until after I had taken a bite, though. How was it? Had a friend who had a cookie on one hand and a wrapper on the other. He was hiding in the bathroom so he can have all the cookie to himself. In panic, he ended up shoving the wrapper in his mouth and the cookie in the toilet. Why would he want to flush a wrapper? That's not good for your septic system. Peeled the potatoes, then put the peeler in the pan with water and threw the potato in the soapy sink water. Threw my phone in a lake. Why? I've thrown a lot of things away and held on to the trash. One bag full of dog poop, one bag full of dog treats. Shoved one in my pocket. Lesson learned, use a different bag. I've got type 1 diabetes. Usually when I prep for a shot, I take the cap off with my teeth. Once I took it off with my hands, somehow forgot in the 1 seconds I did it, and continued to stab my tongue with a sharp needle. I used to put Vaseline under my eyes before bed. One night I got drunk and put the Vaseline under my eyes. They had started burning. Turns out I accidentally used vapor rub instead of the Vaseline, lol. Can I ask why you put Vaseline under your eyes? Like, does it do something? Like to eye bags or something? Cigarette burn to the lips. Yeah, it could be worse. I was sitting on the toilet, smoking, threw the butt in the toilet, but it bounced off the lip and hit my pee-pee. This happened yesterday. Was blowing bubbles for my son. was holding the bubble liquid container and a beer bottle in the same hand and thrusting the bubble blower into the bubble liquid repeatedly. Except I did it to the beer bottle. And then I laughed and thought, what a dumber. Until I proceeded to stop blowing bubbles, put one container of liquid in each hand, and take a huge swig of bubble juice. My 7-year-old neighbor fell off her bike laughing at me. I went to mail a letter while walking the dog. I couldn't immediately figure out why I was still holding the mail when I got home despite going to mailbox. Doggy poop bag was missing. Ouches. I'm cross dominant. So, sort of ambidextrous but not really. Sometimes I forget which hand I do things with. Tried using a knife with my right hand the other day to slice some bread. Accidentally stabbed my left hand instead because I can't use knives very well in my right hand. I was certain it was my right hand. But once I switched to my left there was no problem. A part of me is suspicious that they switch sometimes. Wiping my runny nose whilst on the toilet. Autopilot took over and I had tissue in my hand. Edit, wiped poo on my nose. Threw a DSLR on the couch instead of my jacket. The camera bounced off the cushion and smacked on the floor. Not me, but I read a post that someone saw someone throw his phone instead of a piece of garbage off a cliff. Oof. That's what you get for littering. I use a cup as an ashtray. Smoking a cigar. Drinking scotch. Relit the cigar with a match. Drop match into scotch and for 2 seconds I heard this sizzling and expected an explosion lol and my heart skipped. Still drank the scotch. Close bracket. Extra smoky. While cleaning up after a party in college I had a Coke bottle with rum and Coke, but I also picked up an old chew spit bottle to throw it away. You know where this is going. Dark brown beer bottles should never be used as spitters. You also should really not leave them at a friend's house if you do. Especially the kind of friend who thinks Ducker left half his beer, might as well polish it, then smells mint about halfway down, and knows this is gonna be bad, stopping just in time to only swallow a bit. I threw my wallet into the bin instead of the ice cream wrapper. I gave a deer an overdose of my prescription. I will give you a little bit of a backstory. I had a car crash and fractured 4x vertebrae and I was on 4 different meds and we went to the safari park with my kids. I had been feeding the deer and it was time for my medication. So I had just put them in my hand and a deer put its head through the window and I just put my hand out. I was going through a bitter divorce at the time and I couldn't tell staff at the park because my children would have told their mom and she would have stopped me seeing them. I still feel guilty to this day. What the duck? Tame but hilarious. Poured a glass of milk to make hot chocolate, put the glass in the fridge, and then gotten confused as to why the milk jug won't fit in the microwave. I have done this multiple times. If I'm holding something in one hand and the lid for my water jug in the other, I almost always drop whatever item I'm holding into my jug, thinking it's the lid. The lid. Not which hand, but which kid I was holding in my hands. I thought I was holding my, at the time, 3-year-old. Went to do something, so I bent over to a reasonable height she would put down her legs and stand up. I was in fact hold my, at the time, 4/5 month old. She did not extend her legs and miraculously learn to stand. So I basically dropped her from about 2 in the air. Nothing too bad, but once I was unloading groceries to the fridge while I got a phone call, so I put my phone in the fridge, shut the fridge door, and tried to talk to a block of tofu. Instead of taking a bite of licorice I ate chalk. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome dude. Thanks for watching.